Hello and welcome to Breaking Bread with Rivaaj Maharaj, where nothing is off the table. For today's episode, I wanted to talk about the breaking news being released in the United Kingdom regarding Alexei Navalny. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alexei Navalny, the Russian activist who died in a Russian prison almost 2 years ago, has now made the headlines again. According to a BBC article titled "Russia Killed Opposition Leader Alexei Navalny Using Dart Frog Toxin," UK says, Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was killed using a poison developed from a dart frog toxin, the UK and European allies have said. 2 years on from the death of Navalny at a Siberian penal colony, Britain and its allies have blamed the Kremlin following analysis of material samples found on his body. There is no innocent explanation for the toxin called epibetidine being found in samples taken from Navalny's body, the UK Foreign Office said.
We've got some breaking news to bring you now coming out of the Munich Security Conference. The UK and its allies have just confirmed that the Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, was poisoned in prison with a rare toxin. So 2 years on nearly to the day that he died in prison custody in Russia, and confirmation at the Munich Security Conference that was the result of poisoning from a dart frog toxin.
Speaking from the Munich Security Conference, Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper said only the Russian government had the means, motive and opportunity to deploy the lethal toxin against Alexei Navalny during his imprisonment in Russia.
Only the Russian government had the means, the motive and the opportunity to use that toxin against Alexei Navalny in prison. And that is why we are here today, to shine a spotlight on the Kremlin's barbaric attempt to silence Alexei Navalny's voice.
Now, this is indeed strange because it's taken 2 years for them to find out that Navalny was poisoned by the Russians. Again, I'm neither here for or against the Russians or the British or anybody else for that matter. I've just read an article and my mind's immediately being alerted to the alarm bells as to why now, why release these findings now, why at the Munich Security Conference. The conference in Munich is about safety and security, so it's an appropriate place to highlight once again the Russian boogeyman or the Russian threat that we face. You know, for me, our continued descent down the path that the Russian boogeyman is there and Russia is out to invade and, conquer Europe. And, while it may be true that Russia is engaged in the destabilization of Europe, I would argue that we are actively engaged in the destabilization of Russia as well. So it's a game being played by both sides, both parties, and when we propagate this narrative that we are basically defending ourselves, let's look at some of the things that we've done to antagonize the Russians as well. I'm saying that the truth lies somewhere in between. If you look at one of the videos I did recently regarding the Bundeswehr in Lithuania, and you come to understand, you have these warning bells go off in your head that we continuously being bombarded with the propaganda that the Russians are evil, they are bad, and they want to annex the entirety of Europe. And then you subsequently become aware of all the anti-Russian propaganda starting to creep in. And this issue on Navalny is an excellent case in point. Look, I have no doubt that the Russians probably assassinated him, that they administered this poison, or something even worse. However, what I'm saying is we've known this. We've sat on it, and we feel that now it's an opportune moment within which to release it. And what's going to happen? By and large, the majority of the British population are going to read these articles, watch these news feeds, and then go out and spew forth this narrative that we're being fed. And the more it's being spewed out, the more it's being perpetuated, the more it becomes acceptable, the more it becomes the truth, and the more it justifies us, even in our subconscious, that the Russians are our enemy and we need to defeat them. We put forward these narratives and they just get ingrained in the psyche of our populace, and it then mobilizes us towards the end that the government want us to go on, which is to war with Russia. And I'll tell you right now, where we are, it's a suicide mission. Us taking on the Russians is a suicide mission. Firstly, we don't have a strong enough government. If you are asking the troops of the United Kingdom to rally around a joker figure like Keir Starmer, forget it. Forget it. There's nothing in him that makes you want to stand up and say, I'm British, I'm proud, and I want to go and fight for my country. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because everything coming out about him and everything that he is spouting is just a load of nonsense. So, I just don't understand this insanity and this madness. Let's look at what the article further says. While Cooper announced the findings, a joint statement was issued by the UK, Sweden, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. Note how these are the same players active in calling for the destruction of the Russian system, the Russian government. One day Vladimir Putin is dying because he's got COVID. The next day he's got some cancer. It just keeps getting more and more ludicrous. And these are the same people, these are the same governments that have actively engaged in asking us to support their efforts in Ukraine. 4 years down the line, nothing to show except poverty within our own countries, our own people being impoverished at the expense of this lunacy. Cooper met with Navalny's widow, Yulia Navalnaya, at the conference this weekend. So, it was even arranged for Navalny's widow to be at the conference. Read between the lines, ask questions. It's a security conference in Munich. They knew they're going to drop this bombshell. So what they did, they got his wife in there to make it, optic. It's all about the optics, pulling at your heartstrings. It's an emotional plea to the people of Europe. The Russians are our enemy. And yet, the greatest threat of invasion came from Donald Trump when he said he'll take Greenland at any cost. Praising Navalny's huge courage, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said the determination to expose the truth has left an enduring legacy. It baffles me that these people that will hide the truth regarding all the nefarious activities they and their predecessors have been involved in, and then will suddenly go and champion the cause of truth somewhere else. It goes back to the time when we knew Saddam Hussein was killing the Kurds with mustard gas, and we did nothing about it. We wait 20, 30 years later to then use it against him. The same thing with Muammar Gaddafi. So as long as people play second fiddle to our tune, it's fine. The moment we have no more use for them, we're willing to abandon them, which is fine. But then we don't only stop there. We have them assassinated, we have them hanged, we have them murdered. What does it say about our human rights record? What does it say about the value system we try to preach within our country? So again, for me, the timing of this article is absolutely incredible. But it also shows us that our governments think that we are a bunch of moronic idiots, that no matter what they put out there, we will just swallow it wholeheartedly and spout it out verbatim, because that is what we are. Docile, moronic, dithering, blabbering idiots. that will just go on. And they believe that we just accept being played. And for the most part of it, I think they're right. For the most part of it, I think they're right. While we get bogged down in conservative and labor politics and, who went to spend the night at Jeffrey Epstein's island, and that all these other big policy changes are taking place, and it's just incredible. All these years of, Edward Bernays understanding the human psyche, liaising with Freud, getting Bernays to propagate all the propaganda to help further the cause, all the understandings in research regarding the human psychology, the human psyche. It hasn't gone to waste. We're seeing it play out real time in the way the governments treat its population and the way we react to the stimuli that they put out. So once again, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Please remember to like, share and subscribe, as it helps us with the algorithm and it helps our channel to grow.